Well, hey, everybody. It's the Common Good Podcast, Politics Day. Common Good Politics. I'm Dan, this is Doug and Rob, and we're going to talk about the one thing that we wish we didn't have to keep talking about, which is what Donald Trump is up to in an attempt to, quote-unquote, make America great again. I'm still waiting to see if any of the things he's even trying to do will lower grocery prices, as was a big promise of his. But so far, nothing in the grocery department.
Still can't buy eggs at Target, even though they're no longer woke. They can't seem to find an egg distributor.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be Canada for sure. So they're not going to send us cake. So, but hey, did you guys watch the Super Bowl? I feel like we should. I
did, and I don't normally ever.
We made some predictions,
but I thought this time I'm just going to watch it. It feels like it's always a little cultural thing, and I don't normally know it. And I watched it and found it to be just a regular football game, which I know it is, but it just really felt like just watching a regular football game. My wife banished me to the basement, said, "Nope, it's not on up here." So I came down and watched it by myself. Yeah, not even a game in the way that I guess somehow still makes the conspiracy more true, that because it didn't come true. I can't quite figure out what happened now with how the NFL was totally behind the Kansas City Chiefs, but it was
yeah, the refs couldn't even help Patrick Mahomes in this game. It was all that money for nothing.
I did smirk pretty hard based on our conversation last week about the little text I sent to you fellas during it, where I said I thought the referee would then, intercept a snap and throw the ball to the right person to make sure that the team won. It's never been clear to me how referees win games for people, because I don't know. Everyone would have to be in on it to make sure it's close enough where one call makes the difference. But but the conspiracies will not end around the power of football. So, Rob, what about you? How'd you feel?
I was kind of rooting for the Chiefs for a couple of reasons. One, I live here in an area of the world where there's a lot of Kansas City Chiefs fans, and some of my best friends are Chiefs fans, and so I root for them to be happy. Also, I was looking forward to watching history happen with no NFL team ever three-peating. That said, it seemed very early on in the game that the Chiefs were just really outmatched by the Eagles, and it was going to go that way. And the cigar shop that I frequent is typically closed on Sundays, and the only Sunday that they're open during the year is on Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh.
And since I, live in a house of people who were not terribly interested in watching the game, I headed up to the cigar shop and spun one of the chairs around and plopped down and was watching the game. And just before halftime, a woman came in and joined a couple of guys who were sitting at a little high table, kind of off here to my left, and she sat right in front of me.
No.
In a high stool. I'll have to text you guys the pictures of how my view was obstructed, and so that kind of put a damper on things. I slid over a little bit and then leaned, and
that's annoying.
Couldn't start rearranging furniture all night and all that. Couldn't
well, I already had, and a bit by my chair being where it was. It was just one of those miserable experiences where you just think, do people not look around and take notice of the people?
No, they don't.
Like,
they do not.
How are my actions now going to impact others? This is the feelings I had. But I got to tell you, favorite commercial?
Okay.
Well, I thought the best commercial was the breast cancer commercial. I thought that was fantastic. Very
Okay.
clever, and just really
Okay.
enjoyed that. Favorite commercial might have been the Pringles mustache commercial.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
that's a fun little one.
Mhm.
There was some commercial about women athletes make something permanent. A flag football.
Flag football.
The women's flag football. That commercial was just, it was like a short
Yeah, you like
film. It was
Yeah, you like that
excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I found that to be very, very enjoyable. The idea that people would spend $8 million for a 30-second ad is still just shocking to me. I can't reconcile how or why that makes sense to the budgets of advertising budgets of major brands. It's just, I don't know.
And you know
Like,
which one
wow.
I didn't like? The one where they have skin hats.
Oh, so gross.
So gross. Did you see this one, Rob? They have
Yeah.
it's
The cowboy hat.
It's like built. The cowboy hat is built into their head without
Skull,
hair. Just looks
Oh.
so gross. I don't even know what they're
Right.
trying to sell, and I will not find out. I have no interest to let that.
Some streaming service or something. What wasn't it?
I don't know.
Truly or Tupely or something.
Wasn't a beer?
No. And he walks into the and they ran like three of them, like three versions of them. A shorter
Really?
version and a longer one. And he walks into a bar and he says to the guys who had made fun of him when he was a kid, because now he's cool. And just, I don't know, the whole thing was nauseating to see a misformed head in the shape of a cowboy hat.
Hairless.
But to say this, we are talking about it. So I'm sure that's, somewhere around this week, they are proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
It worked.
Most talked about.
Wow.
And
most talked about.
Nausea-inducing.
Hey, and apparently Taylor Swift was booed, or Trump was booed, or Trump was cheered, and Taylor Swift was ignored. Something about that, which I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost as if there were Eagles fans there who would boo someone
Booster.
rooting for the Chiefs. And it's almost as if there were some non-Trump voters there who might boo someone they didn't vote for. Like, come on, there's 70,000 people in the stadium. Like, people are going to get booed. Like, come on.
Yeah. It's
polarizing people are not, like, yes, they're going to get booed by some people.
Yeah,
like,
good point.
What a big non-story in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. But I guess that the Princess of America is booed and then the Dark Prince is booed is something that people want to put a little bit more attention around. Taylor Swift is seen by so many as above the fray, or should be, because she's so beloved. I guess I don't really. It's a little stunning.
She wasn't booed for her politics. She was booed because she was there to support the Chiefs, and so the Eagles fans booed her.
Yeah, I think it was a light-hearted boo.
Understand?
Oh,
a loving boo, even.
Yes.
like different.
It's
different
just like we're just
okay.
Yes.
Okay. It was hey, we see you and boo to your side, and we'll go to your concert later.
Yeah, because she sold out that stadium on her own just fine.
Yes.
She filled it with 70,000 people.
And she's a lifelong Eagles fan too. Like, come on, it was all in good fun.
Yeah, but hey, if you ever wondered what boomers thought about the halftime show, all you had to do was log into Facebook to get a whole bunch of uninformed opinions.
I don't like this halftime show.
No one ever likes the halftime show in mass. People always go, but I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I have tried for 10 years to become a Kendrick Lamar fan. I've realized I don't really get it, and it's not really my style, so I stay an admirer, but I think he's incredible. I thought that thing was fantastic. And then the way they interspersed, who was the guy in the little,
Samuel L. Jackson
in there kind of poking fun at what people at home would be saying. I mean, it was and it was clean and brilliant. All those people coming out of that car. And then the subtext for it all, where he's having this fight with whoever he's fighting with and
Drake,
bickering about. And then somehow the political commentary in there too. But I didn't know any of the songs or any of the words, but I could just tell it was fabulous. I loved
the
it.
layers of meaning.
What would somebody not
incredible.
like about it? Yeah.
Can
you decode it for the people who didn't understand it? Can either of you tell us what Morse code was actually going on?
Yeah, there's a number of things going on. There was, the picture here with kind of the symbolism of America being built on the backs of Black folks.
Okay.
Some there was the Squid Game references with the stage. This sense of
what's Squid Game?
Squid Game is a TV show. It's on Netflix. It's about rich people exploiting poor people for their own entertainment. There was a
Is that not the NFL? Does the NFL not make that point by existing?
There was
quite make sure they're going to pay their heating bills, buy tickets and jerseys.
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
go on.
There was the prison yard kind of look of the stage at one point. Which is a comment.
And what was the line?
Incarceration. There was, Serena Williams dancing was just fantastic for a couple of reasons. One, because she got in trouble for dancing that way at Wimbledon, and two, because she is the ex-girlfriend of Drake, and who is Kendrick Lamar is always ripping on. There are a number of things. There's listen, if you want to understand all of the artistry and the symbolism,
I do.
Of there are sources out there that have gone through all of this. It's available for people who want to know and want to learn. I didn't get it first time through. I was just like, oh, like that. I was like, my two reactions were, one, I don't know a single Kendrick Lamar song, and two, these dancers are amazing. That's kind of what and then,
there's a few on the nose things though, like in the beginning, the American flag was divided into made up by the dancers. And then there's the line, the revolution will not be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy, something like that. And just a direct nod to you picked the wrong guy. You picked Trump.
Anti-Trumpism. Yeah, good. Well, I don't think a lot of Trump supporters watch the NFL or the Super Bowl, so it feels like a missed opportunity.
Well,
it doesn't seem like there's 100% overlap of those two worlds. Yeah. But perhaps I miscalculated that. Well, okay, I do want to go back through and see that. I didn't even know Serena Williams was dancing out there. Was she pointedly obvious, or did one have to sort of?
Yeah, she was pointedly obvious.
I don't know how I missed it. Okay, all right. Well, I missed that. Yeah, it was moving pretty fast for the older crowd here, I guess. But look, this whole Drake Kendrick Lamar thing, it's if people don't know anything about it, they're both musicians, and there's a feud. And I think Kendrick Lamar is making statements about Drake's criminality in addition to just sort of owning him as an artist. Is that not true? Like trying to more than just, I don't like your music and my music is better than your music. It seems like he's on the hunt here.
Yeah, he's putting him in party with Sean Combs. Diddy.
There you go. Different kind of critique. Because just this morning, as a later middle-aged person might do, I was watching some YouTube videos about the rivalry between two of the Beatles, whose album this year won Best Song or Best Recording or Best something or another. So they're still relevant for some of us. That was at the Grammys. And apparently John Lennon and Paul McCartney were up to this same nonsense in the 70s. Paul McCartney made an album called Ram where he's holding a ram on the cover by the ears. And then John Lennon puts out an album with a cover where he's holding a pig by the ears, like just mocking his former bandmate and soulmate, musical soulmate. So
Before
this
we
kind
move,
of thing in music pushes a lot of sales and, keeps people for decades talking about it. I don't know if that's all there is to it, but even if that's all there is to it, these people are entertainers fundamentally, and good for them to draw the attention and to entertain.
Yeah.
And if he's making a larger statement, good for him as well,
Yeah.
because Kendrick Lamar
Before
does not
we-
seem like someone who's going to waste his voice on just trolling an artist. He seems like a brilliant communicator across the board. So maybe I'm overestimating Kendrick Lamar, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And then I was corrected by a couple of friends who pointed out the fact that Kendrick Lamar's done a couple of songs with U2, and I did in fact know a couple of Kendrick Lamar songs as a result of that. So it's true. I just didn't know it was Kendrick Lamar. Before we move on from the Super Bowl, I just want to, I feel like there's not enough being talked about. There was one celebrity couple showed in the stands at one point in the game. They show, celebrities that are there at the game, and there were plenty in New Orleans for the game. At one point, the Fox broadcast showed a couple sitting in the stands. It was Kevin Costner and Rob Davidson. And what? Like, what are these two guys doing together? It just was one of those super weird things.
I did not notice that.
I should say it's a weird thing.
Well, I'm glad that I've made you both speechless with my my dumb observation. So we should probably move on.
Incredible.
Please. That seems like material for a long tweet string. I think Twitter is ready for this full takedown. Hey, can we talk about Trump for a minute? Here,
I guess.
What is he doing?
It's probably going to be more than a minute. But yeah.
Fundamentally, what is he doing? Like, if I don't even understand any longer the theory of government from MAGA. If government does not exist to benefit people, then what's the point in government? It's like these people are just fixated on the function of government, not what its output or its impact is. So this is the fundamental question I think MAGA has to answer. Why do we have a federal government? For what purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Why do people who volunteer their work life to be employed by the federal government do that work in order to, as the Constitution might say, preserve, to protect, to create an environment for liberty and freedom? If it's not to benefit human beings, then what's the point? And if it is to benefit human beings, then answer the fundamental question how any decisions made in the last week by the Trump administration have done that at the macro level or the micro level. Mm-hmm. Short of, you don't want your money being spent on these outcomes. Now, that is a different question. Does it help human beings or not? And you can argue, yes, it helps human beings, but I don't want our government's money being spent on that. There is no longer a theory of government with MAGA. Why they would choose to put tariffs where they put them, to eliminate whole departments, to fire people across the board, and we can and should get into all the specifics of who they're firing and what departments they're trying to get rid of and all of that. But if it doesn't fit under some rubric of something other than we're obsessed with what the federal government, how the federal government is structured, is that really what the American people who voted for Donald Trump wanted him to do? To fix the federal government system? I thought it was people like us were left out. It's not working. It's harming the American people, the federal government is. Well, none of it is solving it. And I've never heard a single Trump supporter or a Trump spokesperson make one argument for what government is supposed to do and how it's supposed to function.
Yeah. And there was a great moment. It was Dana Bash, and I forget who. I think it was Christy Nome, maybe, on the show, and she said, people just don't trust the federal government. And Dana Bash is like, you are the government. This was trying to defend having a private citizen like Elon Musk in charge of all the audits and shutting down branches of government. It's like, you are the government. People don't trust you. Like you're saying, you are untrustable. Like,
and Republicans and MAGA people have always been the government too, right? It's it's not like
Doug, I know that, you've said this, and I've seen you post it on social media. You've said it on this podcast. Talked about, like, listen, hey, my Trump supporting friends, it's okay for you to now say that you regret your vote. Like it's okay to, like, hey, this is as good a moment as any to say, hey, this isn't what I voted for.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of reaction you're getting from your Trump supporting friends. My Trump supporting friends are thrilled. They love the chaos. They're just laughing about it.
Giddy.
Like the attitude has been like, yeah, he's just like messing everything up, and it's like super thrilled. I had a friend say to me the other day, he was talking about how he doesn't watch the news in the morning anymore because his liberal leaning wife and him end up getting in arguments. But he's like, oh, but when I do watch the news, it's like, I really like to watch like, really kind of down the middle, Fox News is too biased. So really want to watch a down the middle objective station. I was like, oh, what do you watch? Newsmax. Newsmax was his quote unquote objective down the middle station. So he's thrilled with Trump. Not so much for like what he's doing necessarily, the particulars of each and every decision. He's just thrilled with the chaos, thrilled with the spectacle of it all, thrilled with how, people like us, get all worked up about it, like finding all of that funny and amusing. That's the attitude I've seen over and over and over from my Trump supporting friends.
Even though these things will affect them badly. Like these tariffs will drive up prices for us. Like the cease and desist for USAID, there was millions and almost $1 billion earmarked to go to farmers, to buy food here from farmers and ship it overseas to starving people. And Musk said, nope, we're not doing that anymore. So all these food contracts for farmers are going unfulfilled. And like these things will have direct impacts on the people that voted for Trump and are laughing along with the chaos right now.
Well, and that's my fundamental point is if you just enjoy the breaking of it, what's your theory of why the federal government, state government, county governments should exist? What should they do? And if you don't have a suggestion, a belief system for what the federal government ought to do, then just being pleased that it's being demolished, that it's being upended, that chaos is being brought so that later you can fix it, which is the theory. I hear it all the time. Very Steve Bannon, right? And very Elon Musk. This is the way Elon Musk approaches business. Well, in business, you break it so that then you can reset it and fix it to accomplish something else. What is the purpose of it then? If you're going to set it up again, repairing it after the pain that we're all going to experience, for what outcome? Because it cannot be for MAGA people human flourishing is benefited by the federal government. What is the purpose of it? It's kind of some weird mix of libertarianism where it has nothing to do with you and you don't have to participate through the federal government in anything other than protecting the homeland and protecting the right for people to do whatever they want. And if you've got a libertarian streak and you think that's what the federal government should do, is simply free you up to do whatever you want, then maybe this makes some sense. But they probably should say it. And to all of my friends who are like, what's the difference between Elon Musk doing this and some unelected bureaucrat? Here's the difference, friends. When you take a government job, you actually commit yourself to supporting the same oath as elected officials. You become a surrogate of elected officials, and you report to those elected officials through a system that everyone involved in the system can understand. And if you misbehave, the people who have made a vow to commit themselves to protecting the United States are your supervisors. What Elon Musk and his group of people that are making these decisions do not have to do is comport themselves at all in a way that's going to protect the United States. The United States of America made a decision in its early founding to have a slow process for change. That was deliberate. It is supposed to move slowly so that one or two people or a movement of panic is not the guiding force of the federal government. In that spirit, there is nothing less American, nothing that doesn't fit the American commitment for 270 plus years to go slow and deliberative. This is the opposite of it. Now, if you say you don't think that slow and deliberative is a good thing, fair enough. But also know that you're saying the pattern that the American experience has been committed to, you are not. And if that's what you want, then you should make that point very clear.
Yep. Yep. And I mean, if we're going to talk about ways that we're breaking from the pattern, let me read to you from an article that just, this is an article written by Lucas Ropek. I think it's in Gizmodo. Here's what it says. For few developments better typify the unique insanity of the current political moment than the ascent of Big Balls, a 19-year-old software engineer who briefly worked at Elon Musk's brain startup Neuralink, got recruited to the billionaire's government deconstructionist effort, Doge, and now, in a twist so ridiculous it seems like it was stolen straight out of South Park, has apparently been hired as a senior advisor to the U.S. State Department. In reality, Big Balls is Edward Korestein, a high-achieving tech wonderkin, and the large testicle-eluding honorific is merely his online username. The Washington Post reports that Korestein, who is also a staffer at Doge, was recently assigned to the State Department's Bureau of Diplomatic Technology. It's unclear what he, who only recently graduated from high school, will be doing at America's diplomatic hub, but it understandably seems to have rattled senior officials at the agency. The Post notes that for some reason a government directory also lists Korstein as working for USAID, the international aid agency that Musk has all but shut down in the span of a week.
It's amazing.
It's just the
Big
dumbest.
What end?
Big Balls at the State Department.
And we haven't even got into is this the same kid that wrote racist Nazi stuff and was fired and then unfired rehired because J.D. Vance stepped in and said, oh, you know what? Just a few racist tweets shouldn't ruin a kid's promising career. Let's bring him back because forgiveness.
At the U.S. State Department, apparently, Big Balls. And, I mean, so all this, Doug, we talk about, what's the point? It feels like there is a frat house happening in the U.S. federal government being funded and run by, Elon Musk, who, wants to be one of the cool kids, who Elon Musk, by the way, who today changed his Twitter profile name from Elon Musk to Harry Balls.
No, he didn't.
What?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I mean, all of this under the,
Not
the
possible.
watchful gaze of the like grandpa who, is, having flashbacks of his own, days carousing. I mean, it is Animal House in the federal government, and it's ridiculous that big balls and hairy balls and, tiny balls are running the place. And I'm just...
it would be laughable if it weren't so serious. Like, literally, people will die because we cut off life-saving aid to them. People will die.
Big balls decided we weren't going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's this childish view of the federal government.
Yes.
That the federal government really doesn't do anything important, and it's just full of waste, and it's just full of nameless bureaucrats who are making decisions all on their own, just shady moving money. There is a Buddhist thought that you don't see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. It's really insightful, and it's true. The way you view the world is the world that you think exists. This could be not any more true than any experience than Trump-based MAGAism. Donald Trump is a corrupt, convicted felon who fraudulently has treated the American government over and over as something he gives no power to. And this is the man who is setting the tone now and hiring people who view it the same way. I know we're going to talk about him getting rid of all the protections in the federal government around corruption, because that's what lawless people do. And look, Donald Trump is not just a convicted criminal. He's not just a man who can't serve on a charity in the state of New York because of his fraudulent treatment of his own charity. He is a person who is lawless, does not think the laws apply. In fact, has said this very week, I do not have to follow the instructions of judges.
Yeah.
The judicial branch has nothing to say. He said it when he put the documents in his bathroom at Mar-a-Lago. He said it when he was the sitting president. He has said it during his reelection, and now he's saying it as the elected president again. Yeah. So the fundamental nature of this administration is that it is above, outside of the law. We have a phrase for that in America. It's called an outlaw. This podcast has been saying this for 10 years. This man is lawless. Now, the fact that so many people in the American experience don't care is something we have to reckon with. But we should never give up on the idea that lawlessness is a real problem. And to all the Trumpers, and I hope you say it in the chat here, what about Antifa? Okay, yes, any lawlessness. But your argument that we can't have lawlessness, we must have, say it together, friends, law and order. And then you put people in place that are just fundamentally outside of the law. They don't care. And when Elon Musk and his little band of anti-Robin Hooders want to steal from the poor to give to the rich, are marauding around, and you're like, well, it's better than having the bureaucrats do it. No, it is not better than having the bureaucrats do it. Because the bureaucrats are part of a system by which we know what they're doing, how they're doing it, and I promise you, everything a bureaucrat does is documented. Do you know how we know that? Because Congress gives oversight, and Republicans have been griping about what they've said bureaucrats have been doing for decades. Do you know how they know what bureaucrats are doing? Because it functions within the system. These people function outside of it. It is a lawless, outlaw takeover of the federal government. And if you're cheering that on, have at it, because it is going to wreak devastation on this country. Just imagine for yourself if Democrats were doing this. You would be... Do you remember Trump supporting friends? When you could not believe that they would not turn over Hunter Biden's laptop? Or the bank records showing tens of millions of dollars. Where are the bank records? You were screaming. Because he's supposed to follow the law as you read it. Now, you don't care at all. Just tear it all down. And if that's what you want, or if that's what you voted for, cheer it on. And if it's not what you voted for, feel free to change in your quietness of your own heart first, and then make a confession from your mouth, that which is in your heart, that you did not vote for this.
Yeah. And the lawlessness is going to be easier because of some of the things that Donald Trump has done even in the last week. There have been two individuals that have been fired. One is the top ethics official, the government ethics, the government oversight and ethics, or something. I can't remember the exact acronym, but essentially the person who watches over federal officials to make sure that they are, abiding within the law and their ethical requirements. And apparently, Adam Schiff, Senator Adam Schiff from California, sent a letter to this ethics official requesting some ruling or opinion on some of the actions that Elon Musk was taking. And within hours, he was fired, the ethics official.
Yeah.
Within hours of receiving that letter from Adam Schiff, and so no opinion has been handed down. Trump has also fired the individual who leads the department that investigates whistleblowing, whistleblowing are those folks who are employees who blow the whistle on illegalities and fraud that's taking place within the federal government. Now, this individual has who was appointed in 2024 by Joe Biden to a 5-year term, sued because he alleged that he was improperly fired and was reinstated by a judge, and immediately went back to work. But what this shows is that what Donald Trump is trying to do is he's trying to take the guardrails off, like he's, he's taking, like he's firing the hall monitors so that he can, and whether it's him or people within his administration, don't have the pesky, restraints of somebody looking over their shoulder to make sure they're doing the right thing. You just do away with all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's defunding the ethics police.
And we've got people like Gooey Pop-Tart in the chat, so they're upset.
Hey,
he's talking
Gooey.
to us. Hey, Gooey, thanks for watching. They're upset when someone finds fraud. It's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
So you seem to be, and I've talked to many Trump supporting people who are really excited about weeding out fraud. Okay, I'll take you at your word that you care about that. Why is he getting rid of all the departments that weed out fraud? Why is he getting rid of all the people whose job it is to oversee these departments and make sure no one is committing fraud? Why is he signing an executive order pausing the enforcement of foreign bribery. Why is he doing this if he cares so much about doing the right thing and making sure everyone's on the up and up?
Yeah, and just to be clear, the foreign bribery is companies' ability to bribe foreign officials. This is not, foreign companies bribing American officials. It is American companies bribing foreign officials to get more favorable business deals.
Because bribery is the best practices in the Trump world. And look, I'm not even going to bring up for Gooey Pop-Tart. But by the way, great Twitter or great
a
YouTube
Gooey
name.
Pop-Tart is.
I mean, right now,
what's your go-to Pop-Tart flavor?
That's all I've been thinking
Dan,
about.
go-to Pop-Tart flavor.
Strawberry, classic.
Doug.
Yeah, strawberry.
See, I live with a person who's brown sugar and cinnamon, but I
can get into that. Yeah,
I'm a cherry guy.
Yeah.
I like a cherry Pop-Tart, a gooey cherry Pop-Tart.
And have you ever been to one of those restaurants? I've been to a couple of places in the country where they hand make them, like they're high level Pop-Tarts. I mean, a Pop-Tart is a real accomplishment. So Gooey Pop-Tart, great YouTube name. Appreciate it. Not even going to bring up the fact that when Trump was convicted of a felony for fraud, you probably said with other Trump supporters, that wasn't real fraud. So here's the thing, apparently. Fraud is debatable, is it? If someone committed fraud, we can't really know because the system by which we determine if fraud took place and if a person perpetrated that fraud intentionally, you have said that's a totally corrupt system. So basically, I guess what you're saying is that Elon Musk can figure out on his own or with he and big balls if fraud has taken place within the federal government. How would they know that if not for looking at the recorded actions and records of employees who have committed such fraud? And if they're going to get rid of the entire system that distributes that money and replace it with what? Now, again, they're not just replacing individuals. They're not coming in and saying, we're going to prosecute a crime against, let's just say, someone named Don for committing fraud. And then we're going to prosecute Don for the fraud that Don committed and remove Don from the system and put someone else in the system who won't commit the fraud. That's not what they're doing. They're getting rid of the Department of Education, USAID. They're getting rid of whole departments that would oversee this. They're firing an individual not to replace them with somebody that they think would be more competent, but to never replace them.
Mm.
So taking you at your word, if that's what you think they're doing is rooting out fraud, what's the mechanism by which they're doing that? And to what end? Or is it simply you don't want federal agencies to be allocating the money that Congress has said they should allocate? Or maybe you believe things like, well, they've taken $50 million and spent it on condoms in Gaza, which they didn't. Over and over and over, the claims of fraud that you hear, most likely in the MAGAverse, are not actually things that ever happened. It is a series of fever dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And conspiracy theories that they are destroying federal agencies. Now, if again, you believe we shouldn't even have the federal agency and that it exists is an act of fraud, make that argument. But if you're saying that 5%, 10%, 15% is being wasted or fraudulently moved or 30%, would you really be willing to get rid of 70% of goodness because you think 30% of it is not being spent the way you want? You'd make that deal? You'd make that deal with billions of dollars impacting millions of people? Would you really? Or would you get inside the system and fix the 30%? because they're not planning to ever rebuild USAID or the Department of Education or the immigration services. They're not planning to fix these things. They're just breaking them.
Yeah.
And if you think they're not, if you think that we're just a bunch of clowns, which fair enough, I would take that. Clowns are a really important part of life. But if you think we're just a bunch of clowns, then grab a quick screenshot anywhere of the Trump administration saying, and in replacement to USAID or the board of, or the Department of Education, here's what we're going to put in place. I would love to hear it. What's the replacement for USAID that distributes money and food services and protections through private industries, through nonprofit organizations, and other governments all over the world for generations? They're going to replace that again with what? I'd love to see it.
That's the thing. They don't think we should be helping other people. They don't think we should be helping other countries. It's the America First ideology. But what they fail to understand is helping other countries, helping our allies, even helping countries that are on the fence. Maybe they're thinking about trading more with China or doing more with China. Mm-hmm. Helping these countries makes the United States stronger. Helping our allies makes the United States stronger. And just from a purely pragmatic, we want America to be strong and prosperous, helping other countries actually achieves that goal. What you want China to sweep in and take on the role of helping all these other countries and then becoming better trade partners with them and having more influence in the world. You want to cede that all to China, all to Russia. Like, it doesn't make sense even from their America First, we just want to be the toughest country in the world thing. It's so dumb on all fronts.
And it's such a great point, Dan. It is so dumb that honestly, it's hard to even articulate the argument against it because it's so self-evident. Of course, America is made better when the world is functioning better. And if you think there's any nation in the world that could bring the kind of outcomes in other countries better than the United States, go ahead and make that argument. Who else do you think should be doing it, if not us? Now, this goes right at the heart of the American isolationism that is at the heart of not only MAGA, but is the heart of much of the Republican movement right now. That somehow in a global economy that is global on a scale that has never been before, it's best in their mind if the United States takes a back seat. And the irony of these same people who during Obama's years said that the problem was the United States wasn't demonstrating leadership and was, quote, leading from behind. And that's what made America weak. And somehow now in this world, America is made strong by pulling back from everyone, leaving international treaties, leaving the international health organizations, bowing out of NATO, bowing out of agreements that we have economically with other nations. Somehow isolating ourselves is real leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because again, if you don't care about any of it, then fine. Just squirrel yourself away in your little cabin up in the woods somewhere and go live by yourself. But that's not what America does as an international force. We don't squirrel ourselves away. And meanwhile, try to take over Canada or build the Riviera in the Middle East in Gaza. Like this, honestly, this is where you just feel like you're losing your mind. We're going to be isolationist, but we're going to acquire Canada and Greenland, and we're going to take over rebuilding Gaza. But
we're going to own it and use American service members to take it over and remove the gut.
And we're taking back the Panama Canal too.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
It truly is. This is where you're just like, at every point when I open my app, and I'm only doing it a couple times a day, and looking at the news, I'm like, this is the opposite argument of what I saw yesterday from this same group of people. It's America first. We're pulling our troops home. We're not getting involved, but we're going to build the Riviera in Gaza.
No new wars.
Gaza.
No new wars, but we're going to send U.S. troops to clear out Gaza so we can own it and make it a spa.
Yep. Now, Doug, you asked, for some kind of political rationale for this, and we're not sure that there is one. Last week we talked about how J.D. Vance, the vice president, had made a theological argument for this approach by suggesting that the Christian notion of love is one where you start with your family, and then once you've fully loved them, then maybe you love your neighbors, and then once you fully love them, then you love your community, and it slowly branches out until finally you might get around to loving the world. And we talked about how this notion is not the Christian notion of how love works. This is not at all consistent with traditional Christian beliefs or theology. Apparently, Pope Francis is listening to the podcast because Pope Francis has weighed in, and it's really something for a Catholic vice president to be slapped down by the Pope himself. Basically saying that that J.D. Vance is wrong and is just not got it right at all when it comes to his understanding. And I just want to read what the Pope said, what he wrote. Christian love is not a concentric expansion of interests that little by little extend to other persons and groups.
Full stop right there.
In other words, the human person is not a mere individual, relatively expansive with some philanthropic feelings. The human person is a subject with dignity who, through the constitutive relationship with all,
there you go,
especially the poorest, can gradually mature in his identity and vocation. Like, we should be meditating constantly on the parable of the Good Samaritan. That is by meditating on the love that builds a fraternity open to all without exception.
Yes.
I mean, J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, a practicing Catholic, has been slapped down by Pope Francis himself. What do you think, Doug? Are we going to find out, Doug and Dan? Are we going to find out that J.D. Vance doesn't actually believe in Catholic doctrine because he's going to reject what the Pope has to say?
Yeah, and you don't get to do that in Catholicism, the chosen religion of J.D. Vance. The Pope's call is authoritative. It's how the system works. Now, look, we don't need the United States to use an argument of Christian religion for its rationale. But if J.D. Vance wants to invoke it as the rationale for why the government's actions are moral, he's welcome to do that in his explanation. But it would be nice if it fit the historic understanding of Christianity, if he's going to use Christianity. And it would sure be great if, as a Catholic, he was in agreement with the Pope. Now, I have seen cardinals and bishops rebuke politicians. Rarely within a week have you seen the Pope, the Pope, put out a statement that is so precisely in opposition to a U.S. government official.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, Trump's war on the Vatican has to come to an end. The Trump administration's violent war against what the Catholic Church teaches has to come to an end. And I don't think it means that the Pope is going to surrender. They cannot, in good faith, keep utilizing the Christian religion as Catholics if they are in opposition to the Pope. Having said that, did you know that Steve Bannon has tried to put together a movement to create an alternative Vatican in Italy where he took over a monastery because he wants to dethrone the Pope?
Yeah.
Steve Bannon, who today pled guilty to a felony of stealing people's money in some Ponzi scheme to allegedly build the wall. I don't know if we're looking. Are we looking for fraud? Are we looking for fraud somewhere?
Don't worry, he'll get a pardon.
Shall we begin on looking for fraud? And when we find fraud and then the person is convicted of being fraudulent, shall we call that fraud, or do we say that was just rigged?
Let's put them in charge of the whole system.
And to be fair, and I see the comment on here from GJ95, ain't doing well at that age. Hang in there. GJ95 saying, cry more, losers. Fair enough. Yes.
We have cried a lot. We lost and we cried a lot over it.
Literally. I wake up most mornings nearly in tears.
And we'll send you a bottle of these liberal tears for $19.99 and shipping and handling.
Yeah. You should make a donation or votecommongood.com and we'll send you our tears. And it's not because my team lost.
Right.
This, to me, this is not football. This isn't a game. And the level to which you all think this is still just a game, and you think the federal government is just a stupid official ruining the game that you're playing, it's not. Politics is the way that human beings choose to live with each other. Local politics, global politics, national politics, they are agreements on how we're going to function with each other. We don't all like the agreements that are made. We don't all think that they're all working right. It's an imperfect union that we work toward and have all the time. You don't seem to think that. Yeah. It's one thing to think we just have to fix all of it. Fair enough. It is another thing to think we don't need most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think most Trump people believe. And here's the thing. You didn't used to believe that. You thought that a well-functioning government is what we need. And now, because the great leader tells you that the only suitable answer is to tear it all down, tearing is what you cheer on. Yeah. And that is a little shocking. And if you don't believe me, scroll back through your own life. And if you chose to write stuff from, 2008 to 2016 on the internet, feel free to check it out online at yourowncomment.com because it's full of you saying things that would critique the very thing you're cheering on now. And here's why. Because you say to yourself, if Trump does it, then it must be okay. And that is fundamentally broken. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, I'm on the other side of this. I'm now at the point where anything Trump does, I think, has got to be totally screwed up. With the exception, get rid of the penny, because my God, that guy just stopped clock theory once again. Let's do it. Let's get rid of the penny. You know who started arguing to get rid of the penny? The Obama administration. Let's get rid of the penny. We don't need just round everything up to a dime. Pennies and nickels, just gone. And if you think, well, we couldn't do that because you have a penny and that's a 1/10 of a dollar. And then how would the economics work? And what if we trade in pennies? Well, there's people who literally trade, as you know, in fractions of pennies. A penny is just it's just the first denomination that we use in our currency. It can just as easily be 10 cents as 1 cent because people already move money and make bets and invest in fractions of pennies.
Even gas prices are fractions of pennies. We pay it at the
0.9 cents, 0.9 pennies. Let's just be okay. So I'll grant you that one. Trump stumbled onto something that kind of makes some sense. Pennies don't make sense anymore. Let's just be done with them. And not because it costs 2 cents to make every penny. That's got nothing to do with it. Because again, the federal government literally produces the money. It doesn't come from you. You don't pay for your penny.
But here's the thing, like you said, these are policies and actions that Republicans would have been against 9 years ago. And in fact, some still are. Like I saw Rand Paul come out and say, tariffs are a tax on the consumer, and Republicans are against taxes on the consumer. Like, this isn't that hard.
Rhino.
And so you have kind of I disagree with most of what Rand Paul is about, but at least he stands on business when it comes to the things that he actually believes and that all Republicans up until Trump believed. Like, it's just maddening that they throw out their own ideals when it's Daddy Trump.
Yeah. Are we headed for a quote unquote constitutional crisis? Because what happens when the Trump administration, in whatever form, whether it's Elon with Doge, whether it's some kind of executive order that Trump has put out, just defies a judicial ruling.
Yep.
And Congress says we're not going to do anything about it either. The checks and balances are gone.
Yeah. Yeah, because as people know, and I don't want to be pedantic here, but there's 3 components to our government: the legislative branch, Congress; the executive branch, the presidency; and then the judicial branch. And normally there is a check on powers. So some things Congress can't do, some things the president can override, and some things that the judicial branch can determine cannot go forward. So all of that can function and happen. A judicial branch can say, we hereby declare that you can't do this action, head of the executive branch. And then when the head of the executive branch says, do it anyway, then what happens? Then someone sues again, and it goes to court, and the court says, no, really, you really can't do it. And then they say to the Department of Justice, you need to enforce this. And the Department of Justice says, no, we won't. That is currently happening, but right now it's happening under appeal. So Trump has done a number of things, said he's going to fire people. A court says you can't do it. They say, well, we're just going to keep doing it while it's under appeal. We're already there. There is no enforcement mechanism inside the 3 branches of government: the judicial branch, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. The 4th component of American society is what has to kick in, and that's the American people. And that is where not a government shutdown, which Democrats can try to pull off. They can slow up some of this stuff by shutting down the government, finding ways to do that, putting a pause on everything, which creates all kinds of havoc. But some kind of civic action which stops society. So little things, examples of that would be a sit-in to stop people from accessing a federal building or something, or blocking a highway, or not going to work. We may get to a point, without sounding alarmist, where the only thing the American people can do is to try to stop the functioning of the U.S. economy in response to it. It is absolutely possible that Trump will do this, that Trump will then say, well, some judges have said that we can do it, and he'll do the some judges and some people are saying, and just roll right over it. And when the president of the United States gives somebody an order and they've chosen to stay inside the power of the command of the presidency, They will do it. There is no one to stop them from doing it if they choose to be lawless. And this is why I think the lawlessness is the most significant threat to the United States of America. And when it comes from this government, the very government that's supposed to enforce it, there is not a lot the American people can do. This is what it would look like to see the Constitution be set aside and to see the separation of powers as the very first thing that is set aside. To defy the will of Congress, which Republican MAGA people were glad to do during the Biden administration, and now to defy the courts. Or to defy the Supreme Court. I mean, look, the Supreme Court's power, and the Supreme Court says this all the time, the only power the Supreme Court has is that the American people force the enforcement of the rulings of the Supreme Court. If not, what are they going to do about it? If the Supreme Court rules something about a state and the state says, no, we're not going to follow that, and Trump agrees that they're not going to follow it and doesn't want them to follow it, and then the federal government is asked to send in troops to enforce the law in that state, and Trump says, nope. There's nothing that can be done. The justices aren't going to take off their robes and go flying in there like a bunch of superheroes and enforce the law. That's not how it works. There is no one to do it. I mean, this is the problem with a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. It's just us. And when these people do not choose to take as authoritative the law of the United States as it's interpreted by judges, we have no law. And we are in lawless land. And I think we're already there. I think Trump has been setting this up for the entirety. And frankly, he is going to use the argument, I was convicted of crimes and the American people still elected me because they do not trust the judicial system. And if you didn't vote for Donald Trump to make the point that you think the judicial system is passé in America, you should say it now, because Trump is going to behave as if the judicial system in the United States has nothing to do with him or his agenda. J.D. Vance went on news shows this week and said the president of the United States does not have to follow the rulings of judges. There it is. I wonder if the Pope will chime in. Probably not.
Well, listen.
Oh, there it is. There it is right there. I didn't even see that was up on the screen because I was ranting into the
You're monologuing. Yeah, the exact quote is, J.D. Vance said this, quote, "Judges aren't allowed to control the executive branch's legitimate power." Posted this on X.
Wow. The Post, which landed as several federal courts have issued orders temporarily slowing or stopping the Trump's administration's early executive orders, prompted consternation among President Trump and Vance's opponents, who read Vance's post as a thinly veiled suggestion that Trump defy the courts if they move to block the executive orders. And if that's not what J.D. Vance meant, then he should make that perfectly clear. Maybe he was just randomly saying, hey, I just want to clarify something here, that sometimes the president has powers that a lower court might try to usurp. And if it's determined that the lower court doesn't have the power to do that by a higher court, then Trump shouldn't be following it in the meantime. Maybe that's the argument he's trying to make. But it's not.
Yeah.
It is saying to the MAGA verse, the president doesn't have to follow the rulings of courts. They're going to slow drip talk this until they put it into place.
And the reason the courts are having to do this is because these executive orders go against the law. They are illegal. Some are illegal and unconstitutional. And for the party that just has the biggest heart for the Constitution, it's insane to watch them throw that out if Trump issues something that goes against the Constitution. Well, it's fine if our guy's doing it. It's okay to break the law if our guy's doing it.
By simply saying law and order party, if what you didn't mean was we don't have to follow law and order, then you should make that clear, because it seems like you're saying there's law and there's order, and we're not following either of them.
Mm-hmm.
We want chaos, and we want to flout the power given to the law. We don't think we need to follow it.
Yeah.
And friends, this all sits under something that there's no reason you should know about, but it's an entire argument that's been being made by many of these people, including old school Bill Barr way back during Nixon's time, which gave the presidency extreme power. Their belief is that the presidency is unique in the federal system and should have virtually no limits put on it by any other branch.
When you stop and think about the American Revolution, the Declaration of Independence, and what it was about not having a king.
Not having power concentrated in the hands of one person.
Powerful executive.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, speaking of all powerful, I mean, we could talk all day about the really serious stuff, and then there's the like hilariously absurd stuff. Donald Trump,
like this,
is naming himself chairman of the Kennedy Center and wants to dictate programming. Now,
this is such like a Kim Jong-un move.
All of us, I mean, we probably know the Kennedy Center best for the Kennedy Center Honors, which is an annual show on CBS where it's essentially a lifetime achievement award for artists of some kind, whether they are comedians or actors or musicians, and they sit in a mezzanine in a balcony with typically with the president of the United States, and they wear like a little I don't know, they have like a red, white, and blue kind of sash thing around their neck, and because they are being honored. And then typically what happens is that other entertainers will perform their songs or pay tribute to them in some way. And it's a wonderful little TV special. And Donald Trump, and then the Kennedy Center does a whole lot more than that, as a venue in Washington, D.C.
Sure.
Can you imagine Donald Trump programming the Kennedy Center Honors?
My gosh.
And why does the man think he has the time to do this?
Right.
Between his active golf schedule,
right,
his inability to work after 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Why does the president of the United States, why does the executive of the executive branch of the federal government have time to also do this job?
Well, Elon Musk is doing everything else. So
busy. There it is. Because he's no longer the president. And he's like, well, everybody else is just running this show around here. I mean, I don't even agree with the Project 2025 agenda. I don't even know what it is. And it is being put in place by his administration. So he clearly either didn't tell us the truth about that or doesn't know what's happening. And maybe people have just said, sir, as he likes to say, that they say to him, sir, we've got this. You've got all the time in the world. And he's like, well, what could I do? Oh, I could be the chairman of a arts and ideals variety show, and I could run that. Well, that sounds good for you, Don. Why don't you go do that?
So
it's remarkable.
I asked ChatGPT to imagine what the Kennedy Center Honors might look like with Donald Trump as the chairman, and I would just hit you with a brief little description of the performances. The four people honored would be John Voight, Kid Rock, Ted Nugent, and James Woods. All white men, by the way, because ChatGPT gets it. For John Voight, a dramatic monologue from Midnight Cowboy performed by Scott Baio, followed by a montage of Voight's greatest roles set to a reading of The Art of the Deal. For Kid Rock, a performance of Born Free by Jason Aldean with a surprise duet featuring Marjorie Taylor Greene on air guitar. For Ted Nugent, a full-throttle rendition of Cat Scratch Fever by a supergroup featuring Lee Greenwood, Trace Adkins, and a hologram of Ronald Reagan nodding in approval. And for James Woods,
Not the hologram.
a theatrical reading of his most incendiary tweets delivered by Kevin Sorbo, followed by a tribute reel featuring clips of Wood portraying villains, capped off with a performance of America the Beautiful by Roseanne Barr.
Oh my gosh.
ChatGPT goes on to say Trump himself gives a 30-minute impromptu speech in which he claims the Kennedy Center was a disaster before I got here. Believe me, just a total mess. And the grand finale is a star-studded sing-along of God Bless the USA featuring all honorees and guests, backed by a choir of former Apprentice contestants.
That's incredible.
Wow.
And will probably come
literally
to
an
pass.
algorithm.
ChatGPT gets it.
Here's what I hope. Trump doesn't know about ChatGPT, or Stephen Miller doesn't tell him about ChatGPT, because if he read that, he would be like,
that sounds great.
Now we're talking.
That's a great lineup.
Now we're talking. That sounds, I couldn't come up with half of that. He will be thinking. This is just the absurdity that he wants to be in charge of that.
Yeah.
For some personal grievance reason, he would say, as the president of the United States, who should be receiving daily briefings and making the toughest decisions that the federal government has to make, he's like, yeah, but I think I'd like to spend a little bit of time looking at the programming of the Kennedy Center honors.
Because again, none of this is about helping the American people. It's all a vanity project.
Yep.
None of it. Yeah, look, and this is where that little edict from Reagan, way back, the most dangerous words in the English lexicon are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And people have rallied around that. The belief that the government is the problem, or the belief that, well, we have a Department of Education and our educational system is clearly not working. We have health and human services, and yet obesity among our children are going up. So therefore, the problem is the Department of Education and the Department of Health. Not the local expressions of that, not the systemic struggles of education in a society in which people economically suffer, not the fact that there's entire food deserts of healthy food and bad habits, not the fact that salt and fat is addictive to all of us. I can promise you that because I just enjoy a Taco Bell, those new baked or burritos that are grilled. Unbelievable. That's got nothing to do with it. Somehow the federal government that is so inept is also the cause of this. So we should get rid of the federal government agencies so that things function better. That belief roots from the notion that Reagan tapped into, that I'm here from the government, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help, is what's dangerous. And you know what fundamentally the argument against the government is? It's an argument against the American people. We are an of the people, for the people, by the people political system. There is no one in the government who's not just an American citizen. We just give certain positions that individuals can hold certain authorities. And when you are anti-government, you are basically saying, I do not want the other American people or other American agreements to bind me. Fair enough if that's your argument. But you're not taking on the government, Kristi Noem. People don't trust the government. You're saying people don't trust the other American citizens who function in the government. And if you're like, well, you got that right, I certainly don't. Okay. Keep hating on America. Keep distrusting your fellow citizen. And then tell us that the whole problem is the lefty liberals are so woke, their eyes just can't quit crying. Yeah, that's really the problem. You do not trust your fellow citizens. Now, you could be saying, and you probably should, hey, Joker, you certainly don't trust your fellow citizen in their behavior with Donald Trump. Yes, that's true. And the reason I don't trust Donald Trump is because he is uniquely incompetent, not because I don't trust the presidencies.
Yep.
In fact, I'd like him to live up to it.
Yeah.
To rise to the level of the office that he holds.
Yep.
Instead of using that office in ways that caused him to be impeached twice, to lead an insurrection, and to become lawless while being out of office and before taking office for the second time. And yet the American people said, in greater numbers, and here's a thing we all have to swallow, friends. And if you're still listening to this, you're hardcore, so you can tolerate this. Donald Trump got 63 million votes in 2016. He got 72 million votes or 70 million votes in 2020. He got 77 million votes in 2024. 14 million people who didn't vote for him in 2016 voted for him in 2024. And probably more than that, because a bunch of people who did vote for him in 2016 didn't vote for him in 2024. So the numbers are even higher. So whatever's going on with that is something we all have to own. And if you love the American people and you can't love America and hate your fellow citizen, we have to come to grips with the fact that that number of people looked at this nonsense, and rather than doing what we all thought they would do, saying, hell no, they said, give me a refill on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't order it the first time, but I'll order it the third.
Yeah, that's what is maybe the
incredible.
most depressing part.
But if this isn't what you signed up for, here's just a guy going down a dark hole trying to find a little gleam of light, in his own neurons that are firing, because the light's not coming from the outside at all. It's just a flash of neurons in your brain, a little bit of gleam of light. Maybe this is not what people signed up for. Because I heard it from Trump voters going into the election. He's not going to do that stuff. He's not going to go arresting, any people that are in the country without authorization, unless they committed a crime. And then his immigration czar said, oh, no, we're going to do that. And we're going to do it in certain cities that we call sanctuary cities. We're going to go after those people in those places just to punish them.
And send them to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
And you said he's no way he's just going to tear down the government. That's not what he's going to do. He just wants to fix some things. Oh, yeah. Well, how's that going? Mm-hmm. Is he 3 weeks in here? Is that where we are? Are we 3 weeks in today?
Feels like
anniversary.
An eternity.
21 days. The amount of damage this guy has caused. Now, he said it's been called the greatest administration in the first 3 weeks in the history of. And I'll tell you, for a 100-day agenda, he's only at day 21. He's doing pretty well in his agenda. Mm-hmm. Is this the agenda you voted for? Is this the agenda you want? Because if not, speak up. And if it is, glory be. Hail your fearless leader. And if America is not better because of all of this, what DEI program, what Obama official will you blame?
Yeah.
You should start a list. If
but
there's
that's
any
the thing, like this whole, the government sucks and can't do anything right is just a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Because the Republicans are a part of the government and they just keep throwing sticks in the spokes of the bike and saying, look, bikes are dumb. Bikes are unsafe.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys are actively tearing it down from the inside. There's no wonder it doesn't function.
Yes.
And then running off and fundraising off the idea that the federal government doesn't function the way we want it to.
And as religious people, we didn't even talk about the National Prayer Breakfast and the nightmare that was, and the appointment
of Paula
White to things.
Bananas.
Bananas.
And we didn't get to the video of Tom Homan, the border czar. I don't know if we want to save that for another day, I guess.
Save it. It's evergreen.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's just villain. You know, like if you're
One
going
of
to
the
imagine,
worst
if you were going
human
to cast
beings.
a government villain in a movie, he's exactly what you would do. Like it's central casting.
It's wild.
Yeah, but says in the comments, I blame the fire department for every fire. Okay, yeah, but I don't know if that's fresh to you or original, or if you came up with that, or if that's a saying, but that's a good one. Because every time I see a big house fire, you know who's there? Fire department.
Yep.
You tell me. I'm just asking
Not
questions.
saying, I'm just saying.
Did they have something to do with it? I don't know. I mean, it just seems like, the house was on fire, and who do I see out there? Yep, the fire department.
Let's get big
You know what we
balls
should
on the
do to have
case.
less fires? Get rid of the fire department. That would do it. And if you think that's just overly simplistic mockery, do you remember when Donald Trump, when he was the president and we were in the midst of a global pandemic, said, if you want the numbers of cases to go down, stop testing.
Just stop counting them. It's easy, guys.
The numbers.
Yeah, if we don't know how many
just
people
go
have
down.
it, the numbers will go down.
The numbers will go down. That's the problem is you are testing.
Mm-hmm.
And look, there's a sense in which you mock that and everything else, and you could make some argument that maybe he was making some kind of a point about we didn't used to test, and now he did. You could, but that's not what he was doing. It's a way he thinks about the world, and he's made the argument for thinking about this world in his books. He's made it before he was ever president. He talked about this stuff. Say the thing you want to be true to make it true.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from an entire theory that he has committed himself to, from Norman Vincent Peale all the way forward. It's what religious people call name it and claim it, proclaim it and make it real. It exists in all kinds of parts of our culture. Visualization, people that do this, from golfers and free throw shooters, manifesting things. That's what Trump is doing, and that's what he is saying. So he just says things that are not true in order to make them true. It is more deep in his psychology, and now in his administration, and now in the federal government, than just simply he's a moron. He is a moron. I will agree with his chosen Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson. He is a moron, but he's more than that. He's manifesting this stuff in a theory of change. Mm-hmm. And that's where you say to yourself, what is the theory of change of breaking the government? And if it's rooting out fraud, there's an expression, and I've never really understood it, and sometimes I feel like I get it wrong. It's cutting off your nose to spite your face. That phrase, am I saying that right? Is that how that saying goes? To spite your face, you cut off your nose. Like, you damage that's literally the argument they're making. Like, we're going to damage my own face
to own the libs.
That phrase. To own the to be like, there. Now we don't have USAID. Like, when did Donald Trump ever? I mean, I listen to a lot, but not as much as I used to. Did he ever say the thing I want to get rid of is the United States providing aid internationally? Was that a thing that he said day one? Mm-hmm. I do remember him saying, I'll be a dictator on day one. And people are like, no, he didn't mean that. And then he just started being a dictator on day one and saying, I will just single-handedly destroy government. Other portions of the government tell me not to do it. I'll say I'm going to do it anyway. He did do that. It's just been one long day. It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And this has been a long podcast.
Yeah.
Not long enough. Remember we did that 12-hour one? Remember we did that 12-hour podcast?
Yeah. We need to do something like that again to raise some money.
Totally. Yeah. VoteCommonGood.com if you want to make a donation. Or I don't know if you're on
I don't know, Joe. Are you interested? Joe Vince, you interested in making a donation?
I mean, Joe, you've already given us money by watching this, so thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
I'm guessing it's YouTube. I'm guessing Joe's on YouTube.
Joe's on YouTube. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
And he
Every
says,
time you click,
why? Yeah.
GB95, Brett Ryan.
Yeah, we
Any of you
appreciate
want to
y'all.
head over to Corbin Haas? Any of you want to head over Googie Pop-Tart? Matt?
Toys or bust?
Steve Latham?
Click and
Any of you want to head over
Click
to
and subscribe.
voteCommonGood.com and hit and smash that donate button. Boy, we would love it.
Yeah.
Hey, we'd love to. Hey, give us a thumbs up, Pally. Give us a thumbs up. It just, I got to tell you,
somebody
it
called
costs
you
you nothing
Skippy,
and it helps us a lot.
Somebody called you Skippy. Somebody called you Skippy in the comments.
I could see that.
Did you see it?
This whole thing, I could see. No, I could just see. I would probably call me Skippy. I would take that. That's fair enough.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Where's the uproar for Soros? Blocking highway.
Highway?
Good thing we got rid of the Department of Education.
He means a highway. He means a highway. Blocking a highway is illegal. Well, it depends on who blocks the highway.
Skippy.
Shall we, toys or bust, go down the road? I have driven down many a road and only to find the highway to be blocked by the Department of Transportation, by the Sheriff's Department, the Secret Service, by protesters. Yeah, so sometimes people have the legal authority to block a highway. Sometimes they have the moral authority to block the highway. Sometimes they have both. But yeah, blocking a highway is not illegal if you want to argue it.
Skippy.
Now,
also, George Soros isn't the president, but
Champ.
Yes, and
Bud
Governor.
Pally. Look, Governor. Look.
Bud got me.
But I like the idea, Toys or Bust, that you are concerned with legality. I am so heartened. Thank you. Which I am too, which is why I do not want a felon being the president of the United States. I don't know how you determine legal from illegal, but actions are not just illegal. Actions done by certain people for certain outcomes can be illegal, while the same action committed by another person for another outcome is not illegal. So I'm glad you're into legality. Donald Trump is a criminal, not only for being convicted, but by his current actions. He is a criminal. Now, you might say, no, he's not a criminal. And on things for which he has not yet been convicted, we can disagree. On the things for which he has been convicted, when you say, even if he's convicted, he's not a criminal, then please don't make an argument about what's legal and what's not, because you don't care. That's from Skippy.
Yep.
I kind of like Skippy.
Hey, listen. Yabbits,
I changed my Twitter handle to Skippy Balls.
Wayne, Chris, Robin, Danny, Tara. Tara had a question. What are your thoughts about Trump's threats to Canada? I think we talked about that a bit last week. It's just, there's just ridiculousness all over the place.
I've heard Canada has a movement to recruit Minnesota to be its 16th province, which it probably has more likelihood than for Canada to become America's 51st state.
Yes.
What if Canada starts recruiting northern states?
Yeah, I'm going to petition for Michigan. Yeah.
Or just, I don't know, pick Arkansas and kind of have it be sort of
Carve
like
it
Puerto
out.
Rico for the United States. Yeah, carve it out.
All right, I got to get out of here. We'll see y'all next week or maybe sooner.
Yeah. Hey, tomorrow night, there's stuff going on. If you're not on the Vote Common Good list and you want to be part of reaching out to Congress to try to stop Kash Patel from becoming the head of the FBI, just think on that for a minute. Kash Patel, Proud Boys supporter, being the head of the FBI. There's a whole movement. We have a call tomorrow night, 7 to 8 o'clock Central Time. Go to voteCommonGood.com. You can find out some details about all that and get on that call, and we'll be running all that over the next week. So lots of stuff going on, not just this fabulous little podcast. But thanks for being a part of the podcast.